Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to, I think when you share your screen, Chris, it's going to get big for us. So if not, I will, I'll pin that so that you're our big screen. So here we go. All right. Well, welcome everyone to our Earth Day event. Tonight, our friend Chris from Legal Rights for the Salish Sea is here with us to talk about what we can do to recognize the inherent rights of the southern resident orcas and the Salish Sea. So please join me in welcoming her now. Hi, Chris.
Hi, thank you. I'm just putting some stuff in the chat just so you guys can see, just in case you're not able to. Sorry about all the information, but I'd rather just put it in there than have to explain everything. So Rima, thank you so much for having me today. And thank you so much to Snake River Savers for what everybody's doing. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, everybody able to see that?
Looks good, Chris.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So happy Earth Day, everybody. I often say that we should be celebrating it every day, but unfortunately we haven't gotten there just yet. Many thanks to Rima and everybody at Snake River Savers. As I mentioned, I appreciate being asked to speak about the rights of nature for the southern resident orcas on this incredibly beautiful day that we've had in the Pacific Northwest. I live on the ancestral lands of the people of the Puyallup tribe. We have been offering land acknowledgements, but please allow me to offer a nature acknowledgement that I paraphrased a bit from a group called Land in Common. Nature was here before us, gave birth to all that we know and love, and will endure long after this presentation has turned to dust. We affirm our shared responsibility to nature. We commit ourselves to caring for nature and defending nature from harm. And we strive to honor nature with our lives and our actions. I am a thanatologist specializing in eco or climate thanatology. And for those of you who don't know what thanatology is, don't worry, most people don't know what it is. It's the study or science of death, grief, and dying. I am the founder and CEO of A Grieving World, offering intuitive and compassionate support to those who are dealing with grief, including environmental grief and ecological grief, and for those who are facing the end of life. I am founder of Legal Rights for the Salish Sea, where we are educating our communities and leaders to recognize the inherent rights of the southern resident orca. So just to give you a little bit of background about me, in 7th grade, my class took a field trip to go whale watching, and it was the first time I saw whales in the wild. And it was beyond exhilarating. I saw gray whales and just wanted to jump in the water and be with them forever and ever and ever. So I knew then, immediately knew that I was going to study whales for the rest of my life. But unfortunately, life took a different path. Actually, fortunately, life took a different path. And I ended up studying social work and found another passion in end of life and death and dying, which I thought was rather interesting. So that actually led me to, well, you'll see in just a second. Let me share something about this slide. When I was 16, I bought this Volkswagen and I was volunteering at the American Cetacean Society. And I got my license plate that said Save Whales, which was stolen quite often. The bumper sticker on the far left is hard to make out, but it says Stop the Bloody Whaling. And it's got like blood splotches all over it. It's pretty graphic and most people loved it. But I just loved my little car and got around everywhere in it. And just, even though the license plate was stolen all the time, the police were cool about it, which I appreciated. So in 2001, I chose to pursue a doctoral degree in thanatology. I originally planned to focus my research on communicating with the dying, since I ran into so many doctors who really struggled with that. But a professor of mine demanded that I contribute something new to the field. And at the time, all I could think about was the ka-chinging in my head about the money I was spending daily on school. And I had no idea what I could contribute that was new. So I was about to give up, and then I thought, well, just go back to studying whales. But when I looked up what was happening in our world, that we continued to destroy nature at incredible rates, and whales were still being slaughtered, I found myself grieving. I hadn't heard of environmental grief or ecological grief, so I searched all over to find information, but couldn't find any. As you can see, I defined environmental grief as the grief reaction stemming from the environmental loss of ecosystems caused by natural or human-made events. And ecological grief is the grief reaction stemming from the disconnection and relational loss from our natural world. I coined these terms back then, but it seems that today people are using them along with climate grief interchangeably when you can see that they are different. So I conducted my research on environmental grief, asking scientists how they were coping with the decline of the southern resident orca. And as far as I see it, we're dealing with a social and environmental justice issue, since nature appears to be seen by humans as a marginalized community. And those are communities that are excluded from mainstream social, economic, educational, and our cultural life. So how do we support marginalized communities? We speak up for them. They have a voice, but their voices are often ignored. And nature has been telling us what she needs, but we have to shut up and listen finally. We are simply one of the animal species on our planet, not separate, not superior. This is a good reminder, but also sad that we have to be reminded of this very simple concept. In 2016, a group of friends and I learned about the rights of nature movement and started Legal Rights for the Salish Sea. In 2018, we met Michelle Bender from Earth Law Center and began our partnership with them to support their Rights of Nature Salish Sea campaign. So what are the rights of nature? They are a recognition that the earth and all her ecosystems are living beings with inalienable rights to exist, to live free of cruel treatment, to maintain vital processes necessary for the harmonious balance that supports all life. Now, I'm sure most of you recognize this photo of Tahlequah. We originally focused on the Salish Sea, but when she lost her calf in 2018, we decided to focus on the southern residents since it's difficult for people to resonate with the sea. So while we were talking about the Salish Sea to people, most people didn't recognize or understand what the Salish Sea was. They know Puget Sound, but didn't know that the Puget Sound was part of the Salish Sea. And so once we started talking about the southern residents, they begin to become more engaged and more connected to what we had to say. And once we're able to get rights of nature for either the Salish Sea or the southern residents, both have to end up then being cared for and healing, because healthy habitat for the southern residents would mean that the Salish Sea would have to be healthy as well. I hope that makes sense. So I see rights of nature as my way of coping with environmental grief and ecological grief. It's far too easy for any of us to stick our heads in the sand and just wait for this nightmare of environmental destruction to end, but we can't. We have to take action. I've written letters, I've protested, I've attended rallies, you name it, but nothing has changed because of that. The rights of nature movement is different because it's about changing the laws. Rights of nature laws have been adopted in other countries. And in the US, we're growing a movement that is getting stronger by the day. It's not moving as quickly as I would like, but we're getting there. So I wanted to show this trailer for a documentary, and I put the link in for the whole documentary. It's on YouTube, and it's less than an hour. So I hope that you guys could take the time to watch it at some point, but let me see, hopefully, oh shoot, it's not letting me show it. Why are you not? Here we go.
Our minuscule brain cannot see what is the might and sophistication of nature. Yet, without me needing to understand everything, the world exists. The land is not real estate. You own real estate. That there is land in nature and nobody owns that. This idea of time. My brain can stretch back 30 years. The land's millions. And I get to be connected to that.
Since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, humans have viewed nature as a resource from which to extract commodities, fish, energy, minerals, timber. Nature is also seen as a place to dispose of waste, often without considering the impacts it may have on the human condition, whose lives depend on a healthy ecosystem. Today, these environmental challenges continue, but a new idea, pulled from ancient indigenous practice, may provide the earth with a rights-based solution.
You are the child, and that land out there, that earth mother of yours is your parent. No human owns your mother.
So earlier this year, Panama granted rights to ecosystems. Ecuador has had rights of nature in their constitution since 2008. The only issue was how to enforce the laws, and we see that pretty much across the board, but that's something we're also working on. It's interesting looking at what is taking place in Ecuador and seeing what we can learn from their laws. To quote from this article, "This isn't about nature as a resource, but nature as Mother Earth, as having intrinsic value, and therefore the standards the court applied are substantial," unquote. Nature should have a seat in all decision-making. If there's one thing we've learned from the pandemic, it's that nature can live without us, but we can't live without her. This article came out last month, and it reminds us that our laws objectify the natural world as property, resource, or commodity for human use and business to plunder and extract from Mother Earth, aggravating climate chaos and biodiversity collapse. We use terms like sustainability, land management, and natural resources as we're greenwashing our way toward the extinction of more species. So getting back to the southern resident orcas, they are listed as endangered in both the US and Canada. By recognizing and protecting the southern resident orcas' rights, such as the right to be free of captivity and adequate food supply from naturally occurring prey, we can begin to restore the health of the species and thereby that of the entire Salish Sea ecosystem. So this is a graphic that we've been using to share information about the rights of nature. And I'm going to read through it because I'm not sure you can all see it all that clearly. But what rights do the southern residents have right now? They don't have any legal right to life. They aren't considered a party or stakeholder in policy decisions that may affect their health and life. The protected without rights, human interests outweigh the orca's right to life. So what would recognizing the inherent rights of the orcas mean? It would enable the defense of the orcas in court, giving them the same basic rights as people and representation in decisions that affect their health and the health of the Salish Sea. What rights should they have? The right to life, autonomy, free and safe passage, adequate food supply from naturally occurring sources, freedom from considerations causing physical, emotional, or mental harm, including a habitat degraded by noise, pollution, and contamination. Recognizing the inherent rights of these orcas shows that we value them as living beings and respect the sacred relationship we have with them. So what are the benefits of the rights of nature? This is one of the questions that Rima and her team had asked me about. Despite the protection that the Southern residents gained under the Endangered Species Act in 2005, the Southern resident population has been continually declining, and actions to restore the population have been insufficient or outweighed by other interests. So these are the benefits, though. Increases protection and restoration of the natural environment, provides standing for nature to defend her right in court via legal guardians, members of a local community, or others acting in her best interests. Now, this is similar to what we do for children. When children go to court, they have a guardian, somebody speaking on their behalf. This would be similar to what the Southern residents would have. And the benefit also aligns with other rights-based movements, such as rights of future generations and human rights. In 2018, I'm sure you guys remember, Governor Inslee appointed the Orca Task Force, or FARCE from what some people refer to it, to look into how we can save the Southern resident orca. The committee, though, was made up of so many people who had their own financial agendas and interests that no one was really speaking on behalf of the Southern residents. And those who were there speaking on their behalf were often ignored. The Endangered Species Act creates a process for approving the take, quote unquote, of a listed species as a means to allow certain activity, but limit the harm to the species. However, in 2020, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, approved a request from the US Navy to continue military exercises in the Salish Sea that could potentially take 51 orcas per year, which, if that were to occur, would lead the population to extinction. And by the way, this information is on our website, legalrightsforthesalishsea.org. So the challenges that we're facing with the rights of nature is that, like rights, people believe that their own rights will somehow be lessened. So when it comes to, when we were fighting for same-sex marriage, people were coming out, with these bizarre claims that if people get married or in same-sex relationships get married, somehow that detracts from the marriage of heterosexual people. Or sorry, I just kind of start losing it here because it blows my mind when it's always got to be about us instead of looking, why can't we all have these rights and share in this together instead of some having and some being the have-nots. Rights of nature is a new concept. It's a totally new paradigm, and we get that. And we're doing what we can to educate people about it. But with rights of nature, people were worrying about the right to fish, the right to boat in the Salish Sea. Another issue, as I mentioned before with Ecuador, is enforcement. But that will come as we're able to educate more people about the rights of nature. But this is still a very new concept. And even among environmentalists, when we talk about the rights of nature, it can sometimes go over people's heads because they're just not, they don't think about this. We've been protesting and rallying and sending letters for so long that this is just something very new. So these are some other questions that Rima and her team had come up with, and I'm going to do my best to respond. If for some reason my response isn't very good, please feel free to email me and I will get you more information. I will connect with the lawyers at Earth Law Center to get you more information, because please know
We lost you there, Chris.
as an education.
Yeah, we just lost you for a minute, though. I think you were just saying if we had any more questions to go ahead and email you.
Okay, that's weird. So sorry about that, folks. Anyway, I'm going to read over these questions that Rima and her team had sent. Would orcas getting rights help the process of removing the lower Snake River dams? Possibly. As I think I mentioned, Earth Law Center has a program, a campaign to get rights of nature recognized for the Snake River, and that would help. And working in conjunction with the campaign for the Southern residents, I think would definitely help. We have become way more, we as the Legal Rights for the Salish Sea has become more involved in the dam breaching aspect. And I'm so grateful for Heather Nicholson, who is here, who's been educating me so much about that. So big shout out to Heather and NRAP. How would this affect fisheries management around the Orca? So the word management already just freaks me out because that puts humans in this level of superiority. But I've got a friend actually who was on our city council here in Gig Harbor, who worked as a fisherman for many years. And he used to tell me that when he'd be out, he and his crew used to shoot the southern residents, in fact, any of the orcas that would come by, seals, any mammals that were a threat to them, that challenged them for the food source. We've got an uphill battle there because I hear that from current fishermen who go out, that they struggle with that. But there are some people in the industry that I'm meeting on various Zoom calls when we're talking about breaching the dams and saving the salmon, who are actually moving towards a more holistic and just way of fishing, which I really, really appreciate, because I think it's like moving the Titanic, moving the system and this fishing industry into a more just way of fishing. Of course, for me, the best idea would be just stop fishing. So that would be ideal. The other questions, how would this affect whale watching industry? Would they have to stay further back or watch from shore only? I'm actually a huge fan of whale watching, but I know that there are whale watching companies that barrel over the southern residents and others. But we've been really fortunate with some of the whale watching captains in the Salish Sea who are policing and doing a great job of doing that. They will keep an eye out, and they have no qualms about calling out boaters or anybody, or even their colleagues who might be going after the southern residents. So that's going to be a bit iffy. Would this allow Lolita to come home from the Miami Seaquarium and acknowledge that she was illegally kidnapped? So Lolita, also known as Tokate, I'd be pushing for this one as much as I can. I'm grateful to the Lummi Nation for doing all they are to try and bring her home. Howard Garrett from the Orca Network has made this his mission. I think once the southern residents are recognized as having rights, I believe we'll be able to add more pressure to the Miami Seaquarium to release her. As far as I understand it, she's no longer performing, but she's still on display. But, you know, every time I'm at the market and I pass by the lotto machines, the only time I ever buy lottery tickets is when the jackpot's really high. And my only intention is to win so that I could buy, which is a horrible thing to say, but buy Toki. I think money is the only way we're going to get her back. But I'll be shocked if anyone ever acknowledges that she was kidnapped. I think I read recently that even the people who were involved in it still aren't, remorseful for what they did. So what can people do to help? This is a great question. You can sign and share the declaration that I had posted above in the chat. That would be awesome, as would helping us. So as you can see, we are working to establish legal rights for the southern residents. Under our current legal system, humans and corporations have legal standing, but animals and ecosystems don't. We believe that animals and ecosystems should also have legal rights and be able to defend those rights in court. Most of the work done by Legal Rights for the Salish Sea is community outreach, education, and organizing. We do our best to support the work being done by Earth Law Center and others in the Rights of Nature movement. If you'd like to join us, please feel free to email me. We've got a draft bill ready to go, but we're looking for a legislator to introduce it into legislation so we can finally give the Southern residents the legal protections they should already have. And I recognize that given all the chaos we're living in these days, that some might not consider the Southern residents important, but I think everybody on this call does. I hope someday that we'll learn to value nature above all else, because if we don't, we're going to continue to see more loss of species, including humans. There are more and more of us fighting our government now in order to help the marginalized communities I mentioned. We have Black Lives Matter, Me Too movement, so many in the environmental world, like Great Old Broads, the Sunrise Movement, and young people suing the government because of climate change. And in the rights of nature, we've got people suing for the right to healthy air and ecosystems. We are tearing down structures that have held us captive in a world that supported a select few. Those people are now fighting to maintain their power. And the more we fight back, the harder they will fight. But we are becoming the majority now, and that's what they are afraid of. In the rights of nature, legal teams are finding loopholes in the laws to help support nature. But each time a loophole is found, the corporations lobby to change the laws to benefit them. We know that corporations are to blame for climate change way more than any individual. We don't have the power to create the amount of harm corporations do. We're calling them out on their actions and they are running scared. So please do not give up hope. When Tahlequah lost her calf in 2018, who would have thought she'd have a baby in 2020? And this is a photo of Phoenix, her baby. The Southern residents are depending on us. Nature is depending on us. We've seen in the past decade just how much our world has changed. And no one ever said it would be easy, but the more of us doing the work, pushing for change, finding solutions to all the problems we created, the faster we'll get to a place of peace and harmony with all. And I know that might sound hokey, but please, it's my hope. It's fascinating to look back through the years to see how far we've come. There's still so much to do. I look back and note that I've been working to save whales for decades, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. But when will they finally be saved? I don't know if I'm going to be alive to see that day, but I pray that you will be. So thank you very much for your time and your efforts to save our Southern resident orca.
Thank you, Chris. That was really awesome. Thank you. And you answered all my questions. We were going to have question time now, and all our questions, you've answered them beautifully, and I really appreciate it. So I'm going to ask my viewers here, all of you, do you have any questions? I see a comment from Deidre. She said that people have made money offers to buy her. Lolita in Miami has refused. Really? It makes them look bad to let her go, as it would be some kind of admittance of wrongdoing. I see. Wow. So how do you think we get around that? Just
actually, Deidre, I love that you put that in there, because I don't think we've offered enough money yet. And I know that people have offered $1 million. I don't know if people have offered more. I've just seen that number. Perhaps you've seen more, but I'd be willing, if I won, what am I saying? If I'm just going to be hopeful. When I win the lotto, 200 or 300 million, that's going to get Toki back. I can't see anybody saying no to that, especially now since she's not performing. But I'm just so hopeful that we're going to be able to bring her back. And I hear everybody complaining and saying, oh no, she's going to die during transportation. This is, all these horrible things are going to happen. And Howard Garrett from Orca Network has expressed several times that there has never been an orca die during transportation. They've died in captivity, but not during any sort of transportation. And I guess because of my background in death and dying, pretty much every person I've ever worked with in that field has wanted to die at home, surrounded by loved ones. And so I think if Toki is ailing as much as some people say, bring her home and allow her to at least die with her family, with her loved ones with her, not alone in that horrible tiny tank where she just doesn't have the support. And I even hate going there. I hate even thinking that, but I really appreciate what you put in the chat. Thank you for that.
Anyone else have any other questions they'd like to put in the chat for Chris? You have been a wealth of information, Chris. Thank you. I have hope like you do. Maybe between the two of us, one of us will win the lottery and free her.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, I'm just so grateful that people showed up, and I just want to give another shout out to a student of mine, Chuck. They're in LA, and they've been super excited about getting involved with the orcas. So thank you, Chuck, for that.
Yes.
And again, yeah.
Yeah, the more people who know the situation, I think the better. So that's awesome. I was wondering, he was all the way from LA, so you brought him here, Chris. Thank you.
We're getting more people. And again, I don't want to embarrass Heather, but oh my God, since I've met her, and Heather, I don't even know how long we've known each other now, but all the work she's putting into breaching the dams and connecting us with people who know more, and just amazing. And Rick, oh my God, I recently met Rick, and I mean, these people are unstoppable. So while we might be thinking that, you know, we're struggling, there are amazing people out there doing this work, and we could not do it without them. And so I would love to offer, just if anybody is struggling with environmental grief or ecological grief or compassion fatigue or burnout, please reach out to me, because I would love to support you and all that you're doing, because I know everyone on this Zoom is working on this and doing what they can for the Southern residents. So please allow me to help support you, because we need everyone we can. And I'm always talking about self-care, making sure you're taking care of yourselves, because it's hard to face all the time when the Southern residents are, you know, we may get a baby and then somebody else might die, and it's just so hard. So we've got to take care of ourselves. So please remember to look out for yourself. I'm always telling, I refer to our Legal Rights for the Salish Sea group as our little pod. And I'm always encouraging people to take a break during COVID and everything. I didn't want anyone going out. If they were just doing too much work, I'd always just ask them to stop, because there's somebody who can carry the ball. There's always somebody who can carry the ball. So please take care of yourselves. I'm sorry, I'm rambling on that, but I just really want to emphasize it, because it's too easy for us to keep going and not pay attention to ourselves.
No, it's very important, because it takes a lot out of you to keep this fight up. And as the people you've shouted out to know, it's an everyday thing, and it does start to weigh heavy sometimes. So it's a very good point. We have to take care of ourselves in order to care for the others, and for the orcas and the salmon and the whole ecosystem there in the Salish Sea. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thanks. And Rick had posted in the chat too to look up damtruth.org, and there's also damsense.org. And those are great websites where you can learn a lot more about the dams from the experts. And Dam Truth has a lot of stuff. They've got an incredible graphic that Betsy had put together that explains everything about the dams. So if you're not aware, please go to damtruth.org. And damsense.org. But yeah, those people are just doing amazing work, and they've been doing it for years and years and years and years. And I'm this newbie coming in and feel like such a dork, but just so appreciate all that they're doing. So thank you.
Yeah, this has been a long fight, these dams. Long fight. I think we've been fighting for a very long time. And then there's someone like me who's still new. Snake River Savers is new. but we jumped right in, and it's nice to have the support of these other groups too. So, okay, well, does anyone have any other questions about anything?
Oh, well, Deidre put in, yeah, thank you, Deidre. So I put in the links for Earth Law Center and Legal Rights for the Salish Sea. Non-Human Rights Project is great, and they've actually been supportive of us, as has PETA. And the PETA lawyer, Jared, is just, man, he does not get swayed. Anybody who goes after any of the species he's working with or the ecosystems, it's like, he's just amazing to watch. He just doesn't take any guff from anybody. So yeah, and the Non-Human Rights Project is doing amazing work. So please look at them as well. But also Global Alliance for Rights of Nature, garn.org. They're wonderful, and Michelle Bender is working with them too. But yeah, please reach out and look us up. And if what we're doing resonates with you, please join us, because we could totally use more help. Pick a recent Ron case. Well, I mentioned that in the chat about Panama, and that was huge. And there have been some other ones. In fact, London was actually looking at giving rights to sentient beings. So the only concern that we have there is that when we talk about sentient beings, people look at elephants, whales, dolphins, and others, but that sort of takes us down a different road, because it's taking us into this belief system that we as humans think about as these animals are sentient beings, instead of thinking of all nature as having sentience, that all animals should have rights, all of nature should have rights, trees, mountains, rivers, streams, and they do. And New Zealand has rights of rivers, rights of a mountain. One thing that I want to add, and Heather, that's a great question, but I want to add something else. So since being in the rights of nature movement since 2016, I have done a, not quite a 180, but I really have shifted my thinking about my relationship with nature. Like in the documentary that I shared, that trailer bit, there's a great part in there from a man who is talking about how the government has given him this piece of paper saying that he owns all this land. And he says he doesn't own it. He's the caretaker of it for future generations, for everybody. And I see where I live that I'm like the caregiver here. I have the space that I share with my wild cousins, as I refer to them, or my brother, sister trees, the birds that are feeding at the bird feeder, because I buy really great bird seed for everybody. And now the whole neighborhood comes and eats here. So I am filling that thing up daily. But everybody, the planties, the squirrels, bear, coyote. Coyote was just out here and sunning when the sun was out earlier. Everybody here. And I absolutely love the connection that I have with everyone. But then I also recognize that when I'm seeing my brothers and sisters here, that I'm so concerned about their health and well-being. Coyote was looking thin to me. Deer, one of my brother, sister deer has a left hip problem, hind hip problem. And that concerns me. And I want to rush out and take care of everybody, but I know that I can't. And that is really hard for me. And that can lead us to compassion fatigue and other issues. So, or vicarious trauma. So there's just so much, but it's just fascinating work. And I really hope that people will get involved as much as you have time for, because I know everybody's so busy doing what they can. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Hi, it's Barbara Hill, and I just have a question for Chris or for the host. And there's, I'm watching, listening from a mobile device, and I was wondering if you're going to be sending out any recordings or if you're going to be sending out the chat, a copy of the chat, because I know there's a lot of good information there, and I didn't have anything to copy anything down with. So if you can send out the chat, I really appreciate getting those links.
I will do that. Absolutely. I will. My husband's right here. He's going to teach me how to save the chat. And and
Great.
then I've recorded this, so I will talk to Endangered Species Coalition on how to send that out to everyone who registered for this event, and we'll send a link out to the recording of this. So thank you, Barbara, for bringing that up, and thank you for bringing up the Save the Chat, because I didn't know you could do that. So thank you.
Yeah, you can. Well, normally when I'm watching a webinar, I will physically, I will do a cut and paste and copy onto a Word document of the chat as we're going, but I'm away from home, so I can't do that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you. Good point. Yes, there's a lot of good information here, and I think we have a lot of work ahead of us still. So the more.
Thank you so much. And Chris, so much of what you said just absolutely resonated. I think especially what you just said about compassion fatigue. That is so right on.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think, we push ourselves so much because there's so much to do that we start losing ourselves in there, and we've got to stop. Oh, I'm sorry, there are a couple things I just wanted to remind people of. So next week is the Salish Sea Ecosystem Conference, and I hope that some of you will be able to attend. Unless registration is closed, I can't keep up with the dates, I apologize. But there is also a screening of Dam to Extinction on Tuesday night, so April 26th, starting at 7 p.m. And Heather Nicholson and others are going to be the panelists after the screening. So Heather, do you happen to have that link available, or I will look for it?
I do have a link. Do you want me to put it in the chat?
Yes, please, if you would, so that people will
okay.
know about it. Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't even think about that earlier. Sorry. Oh my God, that's going to be awesome. So I'm sure you've already seen Dam to Extinction probably a few times. I know I have, but I am so looking forward to seeing it again because, like I said, Heather's going to be a speaker. Jim Waddell from Dam Sense, Tony Jones and Scott Levy, who are experts in this. Rick, I'm hoping you will be there, maybe, and might be able to add some information if needed, but we've got an amazing team of panelists, and boy, anything and everything you want to know about the dams will be discussed on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. after the screening. So please join us if you can.
I'm just going to add, Chris, that Tony Jones doesn't often do appearances to speak, and he's a very well-schooled power economist. Anybody who's interested should definitely, there's going to be some good people talking and really critical information being discussed. Great chance to ask questions to an actual power economist who can give you the skinny on those dams. That's not often you get that.
I thank you for adding that, Heather. And Marjorie, thank you. Yes, Jim knows everything about the dams, and he's just a wealth of information. And so he's going to be there. He came and spoke in Gig Harbor after we screened it for Meaningful Movies a few years ago. And people did not leave. I'm telling you, they had so many questions and were just so engaged and wanting to learn more. So yeah, thank you.
Great. That sounds wonderful. I know I'm going to put you down on my calendar. 7 p.m. Tuesday. So I look forward to that. Wonderful. Okay. Well, unless there's anything else, I think we're just going to end this event. Unless, do we want to open microphones up and just chat for a little bit, or do you guys want to end this? How are we feeling?